Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. S.M. Chirisa podcast. If you like what we share here, please do like, share, and obviously, we are asking you to press the subscribe button. Today, we are having a unique show, and we'll be talking about something that is on my heart and I'm quite passionate about as a psychiatrist. And I'm having an industry friend, one and only Vongai Munatsi, a clinical psychologist. Welcome, Vongai.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you for having me.
All right. So, Vongai, this conversation has been a long way coming. We discussed about this, but we just couldn't make time. But so I'm so happy and so glad that you are here today. So quickly, tell us about yourself. Who is Vongai? But the main thing that I want to get from you is, how did you end up being a clinical psychologist? I remember when I said I want to be a psychiatrist, there was a family meeting I was called because of the stigma, in mental health, where everybody said, "Are you sure? What is happening to your patient comes on you?" And but I'm glad I made the right decision. I'm here and I'm helping people. What's your story?
Thank you so much, Doc, for having me. I think, what you describe is also something that also happened to me. I think for me, I was that child that always sort of thought about what everyone else was going through. I lost my dad at a very young age, and I think I was one of those children that gave my mother a lot of gray hairs because I was always commenting on her parenting and how it wasn't, the best way to be doing things. And of course, within the African setting and within our culture and context, that's, something that, can never actually be said. And I was also very attuned, to my feelings, my emotions. And I would also be that one person who would realize, oh, my mom isn't okay, and my siblings aren't okay, or this one is upset with that one, and I could never really place where that was, because careers in psychology, are not things that people within our community would actually realize as something that was valuable and important. And I remember when I was in lower six and I was going to A-level, and we're, trying to think about, what subjects to go for and all of that. Everybody thought, arts would be the best because, you talk a lot, and outside of you talking a lot, you'd make a good lawyer. So everybody was law inclined. And I remember even when I then said, no, I want to be a psychologist. My teacher sat me down and said, but why psychology? Why not law? Why not sociology? And my mom also couldn't understand, but, why do you want to do this? What is it going to do? And it took a long time for me to get to where I am right now, as a clinical psychologist. And with our systems here in Zimbabwe, again, you'd find that people would appreciate you, Dr. Chirisa, as a doctor, because, you go to medical school and they know your value, as a woman, psychology, and even just in medicine, you walk into a space, people will say, we're waiting for thank you very much, nurse. We are waiting for the doctor. So there was always that we don't understand what the value of this is. And then where's mental health? What are you trying to do? Are the people going to be as crazy as you are? Are you also as crazy as your patients, like you said? And so it was a long fight and a long journey to get to this place. But we see now there's a change in which our communities are becoming more receptive of it. Even our systems in terms of the medical practitioner, medical world is becoming more open to psychology and psychiatry, and that's a good thing.
As a case in point, a few weeks ago, really, I was speaking to one parent who was up in arms with her daughter, and the daughter wanted to become a clinical psychologist, and they were saying no, the way it was literally a fight. It ended up in my rooms, and they said, what's wrong with being a clinical psychologist? And so we still have a lot of work to do in our industry to make sure that mental health becomes a common conversation. But I'm glad that we made the choices that we made.
Yes, I agree.
Of late, being somebody who browses through social media, I've seen a rise of suicide. Recently, I saw one guy committing suicide on live and died right there, filming himself.
Yeah.
And so many suicides that have happened within this short week, in just 1 week. So many guys, so many people that I've seen, police officers, teachers, and entrepreneurs, people doing all kinds of things. From your practice, can you comment what is causing all this? What are the common causes that end up somebody reaching to a point of saying, you know what, let me take my own life?
Yeah. Doc, I would say, suicide is something that's very common, and like you're saying, we're seeing a lot of it in practice, and I'm also seeing a lot of it in practice. It's what we call our common mental health conditions, and coming from our depression. I think a lot of people always say we are depressed, but a lot of people don't actually understand where that's sort of coming from. So depression that goes on for a long period of time, without being diagnosed and without being treated. You remember, I think Dr. Chibanda and team with their friendship bench, when they began, did a study where they were looking at common mental health conditions in Zimbabwe, and that included your depression, your anxiety, I think a bit of trauma, and also suicidal thoughts. And, the statistics that came from that was 3 to 4 out of every 10 people that visit a healthcare facility in Zimbabwe have got depression or these common mental health conditions, that your depression, anxiety, and now we're adding substance use, and abuse into that, but they do not know about it. So our biggest challenge is that, we are having a lot of people that are depressed, but they don't know about it. And when that depression isn't treated or attended to, you then find that, things, become hopeless. And when things become hopeless, people end up then, feeling like there's nowhere to go. And then death, starts, feeling like something that can be done and that can be a way out. And if you're looking at our current situation in Zimbabwe, we've got lots of things that are changing. And some of the things that, or the people that you've highlighted, people that are in our civil service, people that are entrepreneurs. If you have to hustle and take care of your family and, do the best that you can without being, having the adequate resources or in an austere environment, I'm not sure if your business has also taken a hit from, Zimra and all the hoops we have to jump through in order for us to get, tax clearance and things that are being taxed and all those kind of things. It's things that put a lot of pressure, on people, and the cost of living itself, taking children to school and all of those things. And the people that you've described, that you were talking about, are in that demographic, are people in early and middle adulthood. And those are the most productive people in our society and community. They're the ones that are working. They're the ones that are getting married, having children, raising children, taking care of their parents in late adulthood. They're also the people that are being affected by chronic illnesses. If, cancer, hypertension, sugar diabetes, HIV, those are the people that are affected by all these things. If there's a bereavement in the family, the low and middle adulthood are the ones that are, taking care of everyone. Although they're taking care of everyone else, no one is taking care of them.
Sure.
So they are very prone to stress. They're very prone to pressure, burnout, which can grow and devolve into depression, anxiety, substance use, and all these things that we are sort of seeing. And if they are not diagnosed and they are not treated, what tends to happen is these outcomes that we're then talking about, where we are saying, 26 to 29% of people in that age group are actually literally committing suicide because they don't have any help and any support.
So, I think it would be important, if you could just maybe share with our audience, some of the, symptoms that people can watch out for in themselves and their loved ones or friends or frenemies, whatever the case might be. I think it would be important maybe if you can give maybe 5 or 6, key or which a non-clinician can sort of look out for.
Yeah. So I think what we're really looking at, Doc, is the depression, because the depression is what then leads to the suicide. So we're saying when somebody is feeling sad, and that can be observed by others, or they observe it within themselves, and this can be seen through anger and irritation in children and even in adults. Someone says something small and then you're quickly irritated or upset. Sadness can also be observed through crying. It can also be be observed by, isolating yourself, not wanting to be around people. Sometimes I hear people talking about feeling overwhelmed quite a lot, like everything is a lot.
Yeah.
So it's something simple. The boss is asking me to just, take care of a report that I always take care of, but I'm so overwhelmed. Or my kids, I just they are mine. I love them, but I can't cope. I want to give them away. I want somebody else to take them, for a bit of time, so that I can relax and I can just have some time to myself. When you start seeing some of those things, it's important for you to find somebody to talk to. With depression as well, people kind of lose interest in things that they usually like to do. So you find that depression right now is being put at one of the top 3 pandemics in the world, in terms of breaking down or affecting production and productivity. So in the workforce, your people that are losing interest in stuff that they usually like to do, they spend a lot of their time on the phone, they are making lots of mistakes, they are not there, they're not performing in the same way that they should. You know that there's depression because they're losing interest and they're not doing things as they usually did. We always talk about, we know the severity of depression by, your sleep and appetite. If you are struggling to sleep, we know your depression is bad, because usually when we are okay, we tend to sleep well, or sometimes you're sleeping too much. So it's either insomnia or hypersomnia. So you're always sleeping. Any time you can get, you are sleeping a lot. That's something to watch out for. And then we have the eating problems. I can't eat. I don't have appetite. Or the other extreme, doc, which is to then say someone is always eating. And I think, the binge eating, the comfort eating, we then end up not liking ourselves because I've put on weight and now my clothes don't fit and I don't think I look beautiful anymore, and it becomes a vicious cycle. Sure. And your self-esteem is then affected because you don't look as good as you would like, you don't feel as good as you would want, and things like loss of energy as well, low self-esteem, low confidence, difficulties thinking, making decisions. You can ask somebody, what do you want to eat? I don't know. What do you want us to eat? Where do you want us to go? And all the time they're just putting off decisions to everybody else because they just can't make decisions. They can't concentrate and focus. But the thing to really look out for with suicide is the hopelessness. Once things go on for a longer period of time and there is no solution and things aren't getting better, people then start feeling hopeless. This is never going to change. The situation is never going to change. And this is what then leads people to then thinking, it's better if I was dead. And there are many variations for thoughts of dying. And what's important is for people to say, if you have a family member that's exhibiting these signs and symptoms and you're worried about them, most people think that asking about suicide is planting a thought into a person's mind, that then leads them to committing suicide. But actually, a lot of people die because nobody asks.
Sure.
So we should actually ask the question, have you been thinking about dying? Have you been thinking about sleeping and not getting up? Christians usually say, if only God would take me. So it's not yet time for the rapture, Dr. Chirisa. So God doesn't want to take you anyway. But that people are thinking about dying, but they're saying it in a palatable way that fits their faith and their belief. So when you hear things like that, you have to know that somebody's thinking about dying.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a mouthful. I mean,
yes.
After hearing that, you start to think, am I depressed right now?
Well, let's check you out.
But thank you for that. I think I will stop for now and go to for a commercial and be back. We'll start where we left.
Turn your dreams into reality with the right loan, whether it's for business, education, asset purchase, housing, emergencies, payday needs, or micro insurance. We have a financial package tailored just for you. Ways Road Investments, delivering potential.
Welcome back, everybody, as we continue to discuss this important issue. So, Vongai, you're discussing about depression, the symptoms of depression.
Yes.
You gave us a long list. One of the things that I've been seeing in my own practice as well as a psychiatrist, and as you know, we usually refer each other patients, and we've done that for a long time. We should be the right thing to do, because of our different, strengths and techniques that we use. what have you seen in terms of marital relationship? Speaking in terms of depression and suicide, what kind of scenarios have you been seeing that are bringing a rise to that? Because I've also been seeing quite a number of married men, married women coming who have been suicidal. Some of them we've survived. We're para-suicide. We've survived, and and issues have to do with marital status and marital issues. What have you been seeing?
Doc, I think marriage is hard.
You can repeat that again. And I confirm.
Yes. And I think, what I've been seeing is that relationships, all by themselves are difficult, and they take quite a lot of work. And a lot of people don't actually know why they married the person that they, that they married. They looked good, they seemed nice, and it worked. But when then they got into the marriage, and then they needed to deal with, staying together, understanding, the dynamics of parenting, understanding, just how to work and handle money, vision, where are we going? What are your expectations of a husband? What are your expectations of a wife? I think there's been a lot of disconnect, and there are lots of challenges that then come with that. And when marriages are tough, or when people, have challenges in marriage, communicating, relating, even sometimes struggling to have children, or, what I see a lot is when, children have got learning difficulties as well, or they have cerebral palsy or autism and all of those kind of things. You have to grapple with something, deeper than just trying to understand and love your spouse, which then, makes things even more difficult. So you find that love and relationships is one of the biggest, reasons and causes for people, to be depressed, especially when there's also things like cheating and infidelity and all those things. It then just makes things even worse, and it creates more and more problems. And a lot more people actually kill themselves or think about suicide when a relationship is not working.
Sure.
And we see that there are higher rates of para-suicide or suicide attempts when somebody has broken, up with their, or from their partner, or they find out that their partner is cheating on them. I've seen cases where, people are together in a heterosexual relationship, Dr. Chirisa, and they find out that their spouse is cheating on them with a man, and that they have been gay.
Sure.
And they've been gay for most of their lives, and their husband's best friend is actually their husband's partner. And so things like that make it very difficult for someone to cope. You've got someone who's denying their sexuality, and you've got somebody else who's wondering if their marriage and the relationship that has colored their whole adult life has been real. So things like that are quite heavy, and you find that people end up thinking there is no way out, and the best way out is to die.
I mean, relationships can be tough. I want you to just comment on blended families. We are seeing quite a lot of that. A lot of people are remarrying, and, lots of blended, more than ever. But what challenges have you been seeing with those kind of arrangements, and what can people do to decrease the rate of depression or anxiety when it comes to that? Because I've seen quite a sharp rise, and always there's this, people will be in love with each other, but the in-laws, the children, the what, and it then causes, a strain on the marriage itself.
Yeah. We with blended families, I think there are problems that are coming from, firstly, when the first relationship failed, did we do an introspection, and did we find out what is it that actually made the relationship fail? And, like I said right from the beginning, what we're finding with a lot of marriages is that, no one actually gives us information or teaches us on how to find the one.
Sure.
So we're constantly looking for the one, and then we think we found the one, but we don't realize what actually, goes into that. And what I'm seeing a lot more is a repetition of patterns. If someone came from a family that was broken, the likelihood that whatever trauma or mental health challenges that they had from coming from a family that had challenges, and each family has challenges, challenges, then leads them, to find something maybe that, tries to cure what they already had or is a repetition of the problem that they have. So you find a lot of people, when they find their second partner or second spouse, when the first one hasn't worked, a lot of the times it's a repetition of what they got out of.
Same dysfunction.
Or it's the extreme opposite of, what they were in. And then that extreme opposite also has its own problems. And then what then create, and then we have children in the mix who are now trying to also understand who this new mom, who this new dad is. And if we haven't dealt with our issues and insecurities that created problems in the first relationship, we've just carried it to another place. And it's even on a massive scale now, because it's two families that have come together that are trying to then find themselves, which is even more complex and more difficult. So you will have problems with children understanding things. You'll have problems with parenting, discipline, who says what, when, and how. All those kind of things are extremely difficult. And this is why, a cure for it is before you get into the second one, find out. Have some work, see a psychologist, talk about, what happened in the first relationship, have a bit of self-awareness, and then have your eyes wide open when you're looking or getting into your second relationship. And it's always good to have couples therapy before and after, understand the children and the dynamics with the children as well before. Have relationships before you get in, let the children be involved in whatever decisions you're making as you go forward. And when you finally make that step to say we want to get married and make this formal and start staying together, there's been a lot of groundwork that has been done that then makes easing into something a lot easier.
I always say that there's no divorce without scars.
Yes.
And I always recommend that everybody who has been divorced needs some psychotherapy.
Yes, definitely.
Before you move to deal with the one that you've finished. You and me, we are all family therapists, and it's the work that we do almost on a daily basis. I don't think there's a day that passes without me seeing, an estranged or strained relationship. And most of the things could have been avoided if people would have taken care.
Yes.
But sometimes love is blinding everybody, and seeing a psychologist, seeing a psychiatrist or a family therapist is the last thing that is on their mind. But if they don't, they are getting themselves into a whirlwind, and that whirlwind will become a tornado very soon.
Yes, definitely.
Just quickly on the same on the same note, most of my viewers here are entrepreneurs. There's also been a lot of pressure on entrepreneurs. What have you seen from your practice? What have you seen with people that are in business, people that are working in high pressure, like entrepreneurs? What have you been seeing?
Doc, I think everybody in Zimbabwe now is an entrepreneur in some form, shape, or, other. And I think we all have a hustle. You've got a main hustle, you've got a side hustle, it's like we've got octopus hands.
Sure.
And I think we go back to, what we're talking about in terms of middle and early adulthood, where we've got, few resources, and then we've got lots of people that are chasing the very few resources. And then you also have, lots of consumers at the end of it, where a lot of our entrepreneurs are breadwinners and they're trying to hustle, to grow their business. They've got a vision and they're trying to make it work in a country that's not as easy, to chase your dreams and to follow them and to do things in a particular way. And they also have families that are also, looking to them and expecting a lot of things from them. So there's a lot of pressure on all levels. And this is why you're finding that a lot of our people, the depression is a big issue. The anxiety is also a big issue because you're constantly looking at, and social media doesn't make it any better because, one day someone is sitting on their range, somewhere they were your classmate and they're telling you, I've made it. And you're looking at your life and it's 40 years down the line and you have absolutely nothing to show for it. And that's pressure, your children's, friends are talking about the holiday that they had in Bali or wherever else they were, and you can't afford to take your children to Nyanga or even to Nkuvisi Woodlands for them to see, some animals and things like that. That's, a lot of pressure. So there's a lot of pressure within all of these things, and we are seeing a lot of mental health challenges. A lot of our people within that space, there's depression and anxiety, but we are seeing quite a lot of substance as well, Dr. Chirisa.
Okay.
So you then see that there's a lot of alcoholism. There's also a lot of cocaine use, because, a lot of functional people say cocaine helps you to function but continue to do your work. So you take it, but, you are sharper and you're still able to do what you're doing. So we are seeing a lot of substance abuse and people just trying to avoid the debtors, to avoid the challenges and things that they are facing, to avoid not having self-actualized or getting to the place where they were hoping they should be at this particular time. But all of it is almost a self-medication of depression and anxiety, because they are anxious and things are not working as well as they should, but they don't know how to help themselves and how to support themselves.
I personally push and recommend that anybody and everybody living in Zimbabwe needs some mental health assessment of some sort.
Yes.
Sooner than later. We'll come back to this. Thank you so much for watching. We'll come back just after our short break.
Turn your dreams into reality with the right loan, whether it's for business, education, asset purchase, housing, emergencies, payday needs, or micro insurance. We have a financial package tailored just for you. Ways Road Investments, delivering potential.
Welcome back, guys. I'm sure you can see the intensity of and the seriousness of the issue that we're discussing. Mental health is so key. And I always say that there's no way you can contribute, meaningfully to life or to your generation or to your family when you don't have your mental peace. So this is so important. So thank you so much, Vongai, for sharing all these things that you're sharing. One of the things that I'm also seeing is I'm seeing a lot of people that are struggling at the workplace. A lot of people are breaking down. And now this is not just the lower level stuff. We are seeing all the way to the C-suites that are coming to our rooms. They're crying, they're breaking down because of toxic workplaces. Can you give us a comment and from your experience what you've been seeing and why this is happening, and also maybe what a person can do who finds themselves in such a situation?
Yeah, Doc, I think in our curriculums, as we were learning, and in a lot of the things that we are taught, whether it's management or in any form of academic sphere that we find ourselves, Zimbabwe hasn't been very big on psychology and mental health. For the engineer, for the manager, for the CEO, CFO. So we have a lot of people that are getting to these very high echelons of power, but don't actually have the soft skills to manage, people. And, I'm also seeing quite a lot of people, that are struggling with toxic workplace environments, because the boss is very skilled and gifted at what they do. And that's why they've landed the seat and they have the role and the position, but they don't have good personal and interpersonal skills. They don't have good soft skills and people skills. So where they're supposed to be motivating employees to do better, they are, breaking, them instead, and which then makes the working environment very difficult. And what we've also seen as well is that a lot of people that get to these high positions, a lot of them have got a lot of personality disorders. And this, we're talking about your borderline, your narcissism, your antisocial personality disorder.
Even psychopaths.
Yeah.
There's some psychopaths up there.
Exactly. And so the expectations that they would then have on an employee, or the things that they then do, it becomes very, very difficult. And a lot of them with personality disorders are very fragile in their core.
Sure.
So you find that they're very small inside, and then they want to be big by making others feel small. So you find a lot of the autocratic management style, it's actually coming coming from a very fragile core. So if someone walks into the room and says, do you know who I am? The question is, are you trying to convince us, or are you trying to convince yourself?
Sure.
Because if you consistently tell us that you're the CEO, you're the boss, you're the CFO, you're this, you're that, right? We know it. Everybody knows it.
You've got the title.
You've got the title, but you don't believe it, and you don't believe in yourself enough to actually influence leadership. And that's why you want people that are afraid of you.
That's why you
then beat them down. So in every conversation that you have, you're always talking to someone who's always, in a power play of sorts. They're constantly wanting to make you know that you're a subordinate and that they are above you. Or even sometimes it's about competition. It's not everybody who is, again, fragile ego, low self-esteem, but has a high power, high position. You find that there are people that find it very difficult to be a star among other stars. So they should be the only star in the sky, and they should be the only one who's shining. They feel like every other star stops their shining, or subverts their shining, or takes away glory from themselves. So you find a lot of the times they're trying to always pull down all the other stars, and they be the only and the main star that's in the sky. So sometimes when you find that healthy competition, unhealthy competition, where someone is constantly wanting to make you feel small, like you're not good enough, or even what you've produced is not good enough, what's actually coming is their own low self-esteem, and again wanting you to be small so that they can feel big. And the more this happens within an environment, the more somebody feels less and less, the domineering. And this is not just at work, it can be with a partner and a spouse as well. A church, in many different sort of spaces and places.
How does one handle that power play in, you're a subordinate and you're in such a space? What do you do? What's your advice?
Yeah, Doc, the only reason why, a lot of that stuff, whether it's demeaning or bringing you down or beating you down, works, is that you yourself believe that there is something wrong with you.
Okay.
So what tends to happen is, if you know in your mind that I am good and I'm great and I'm wonderful and I'm fantastic, no matter how somebody tells you that you're not, or they make you feel that you're not going to buy into it. And how you don't buy into it is, a lot of the times you ignore that behavior, and you also then show that person that you're not intimidated by them, and that you're not afraid of them, and that you'll continue to show up and do the things that you usually do. But what tends to happen with a lot of us is, if somebody comes beating you down, you start withdrawing. When you used to come to work early, you're coming late. Where you used to present, you're avoiding that person. When we're in meetings, you're not saying anything.
They're now in your head.
Exactly, they're in your head. And what it tells them is that it's working. And if it's working, then they'll continue to do more of it. It's like when you're training your child who's having a tantrum. They are rolling on the floor, and every time you attend to that tantrum, you are telling them that this works.
Reinforcement.
Exactly. And it works. They get what they want. So anytime you don't want to give them whatever it is they want, they'll throw that tantrum. Same thing happens with a toxic boss. It's like dealing with a bully. The more you show them that you're afraid, and the more you change, the more it strengthens their belief that whatever they're doing is working. And the more they break you down.
I think we need to have a whole podcast on toxic environments. I think we won't do justice with the time that we've got left, but I think this one is an important introduction. We really need to talk about this.
Yes, definitely.
Just maybe as we start to round off, this segment, what 3 ways would you say a person can practice, or 3 hacks a person can just do to remain emotionally grounded?
Okay. I would say, Doc, one of the first things that I think is important is talking to someone.
Yeah.
I think within our culture, we have a culture of silence.
Sure.
And, we have these idioms, kufukura hapka, where, it's shameful for you to talk about your personal and your private things. And so we keep a lot of our things in. And I think
keep our pains.
Yes. yes, we keep our pains and we suffer. And so you then see that men, I think, are more guilty of this than women. And this is why you then find that we have a lot more suicides from men than we have from women. Because, by the time a man decides to kill himself, he would have gone through a lot and he would have survived a lot. So I would say one of the first things is talk to someone. And we worry about, whatever our personal stuff being put out there. That's why there are people like us who are professionals who are paid to, keep confidentiality.
That's what we do.
And if you can sue us, if we do breach confidentiality things like that.
Stories that will make H Metro kids play.
Yes, definitely.
And we are quiet.
And yes, so, talking to someone is quite important. And then the second thing is, I would say for every human being, you need to have a personal stress inventory that you take. Okay. And that comes from a place of self-awareness. I'm sure, Doc, with you in practice, you know when you've had enough and you can't take any more of listening to people and their challenges and their problems. And then you take a bit of a break.
That's why I detox every 3 to 4 months. I just go away because you just need to stay grounded in our field.
Yes, definitely. And so for every human being, you need that. You need to know yourself to say, when I'm here, I can take so much, but now I can't take anymore. And therefore I need a bit of space and I need a bit of a time out.
Yeah.
And then the third thing that I would say is actually quite important is to also, plan leisure in your life.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things that we do in all these people that you've spoken about or we've raised as people that are like highly stressed, highly pressurized, we take care of everybody else, but then we don't take care of ourselves. Okay. What is the personal reward system that you have for yourself?
Yeah.
You do everything for people at work, you do everything for people at home, you do everything for people at church, in your social sphere and whatever else. How do you reward yourself as a person? Because anything that is without reward, life without reward is, painful, difficult. And this is where we then get to this place where we say there is no end to it and it's easy for me to die.
Yeah.
Or for,
because it becomes worthless if there's no reward.
There's no reward.
Man, this is so good. This is so good. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of our podcast. But I think it's a matter of time. We have to have a part 2. As we round this off, what would you say is your last word? What do you want to say to my audience? Speak to my audience, who are mainly entrepreneurs, young guys. What would you say when it comes to mental and emotional health? So
Doc, as my parting shots, yes, I think, mental health or mental illness is low-hanging fruit. And anybody in the world, no matter where you are and who you are, you can have a mental illness or you can have a mental health condition.
Yes.
And this is why it's important for us to, seek help, talk to people, share our challenges and our difficulties, because it's very common for all of us to struggle. And it's part of the human condition to struggle. So let's talk about it. Let's not make this, a big secret or something that's worthy of shame and stigma, but something that, anyone can actually have and, that anyone can also get help for and from.
I totally concur with that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure more people who, after listening to this, they will need to come and visit your office, my office, and we help as many as we can.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our podcast. Please rewatch this. The symptoms that Vongai talked about are important. It's share with your loved ones, your spouse, your children. It's something that you can watch and learn, because all we want is for you to succeed in life, but you can't do it when your mental health is under attack. See you next time. Please like, share, subscribe. See you next time. Dr. SM Podcast.